How does a company go from being a market disruptor and the solution to one of the biggest problems in tourism to being a figurehead of controversy that is banned in one of the largest cities in the world? Airbnb's story is one of innovation, fortune, and as you're about to find out, exploitation. The future of the company hangs in the balance. Their CEO is doing everything he can to save the company's image. But will it be enough? Let's find out in today's video why we are saying goodbye to Airbnb. Like most business stories, Airbnb started as a solution to a common problem. It all began in October 2007 when two roommates, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, decided to put an air mattress in their San Francisco living room. Why? Well, for one, it was to create a cheap and temporary bed and breakfast to capitalize on the huge demand for accommodation. But more importantly, they were unemployed art majors and needed to make rent. The problem was that they had to cover 3 rooms until their third roommate arrived in February. At the time, they owed $1,150 and only had $1,000. The clock was ticking. The idea was simple. They had 3 air mattresses in a uniquely designed room to draw in attendees of an upcoming design conference. They began by creating a quick, bare-bones website and started getting in touch with local design blogs. The idea proved to be a huge success, as within only 3 days, they had secured 3 customers. From there, the two continued to build on the success, drawing in more people from all walks of life. A few months later, in February 2008, the two boys' third roommate, Nathan Blachazik, arrived and immediately joined the venture as the chief technology officer. The trio's vision was to provide short-term living quarters and breakfast for travelers who struggle to find hotel rooms in the crowded San Francisco market. They launched their website, airbedandbreakfast.com, 6 months later in August of 2008. The first breakthrough for Airbnb came during an unconventional fundraising approach. Later that year, they raised $30,000 by selling breakfast cereals named after the 2008 presidential candidates, Barack Obama and John McCain, at the 2008 Democratic National Convention. This creative fundraising effort captured the attention of Paul Graham, a well-known computer programmer and investor, who invited them to join Y Combinator's winter training session in January 2009. In exchange for 6% equity in the company, they received $20,000 in funding and the thing they desperately needed to take the venture to new heights: mentorship. The company's journey continued with significant milestones, including a change of name to Airbnb.com in March 2009 to reflect its expansion beyond air mattresses to entire rooms and properties. Subsequent funding rounds, such as the $600,000 seed investment from Sequoia Capital in April 2009 and the $7.2 million Series A round in November 2010, fueled Airbnb's growth. In 2011, the company also captured the attention of A-list celebrities who were looking to invest, including Ashton Kutcher and Guy Oseary. After a short period of deliberation, the two decided to invest $2.5 million. Fast forward to December 2020, and the company went through an initial public offering, raising $3.5 billion. Airbnb was on the fast track to monumental success. Little did they know it would only be 3 short years later that the beginning of the end would start to unfold. Between the years 2020 and 2023, Airbnb went through its fair share of controversies. From accusations of tax evasion to racism from hosts, their perfect image was now under fire. None caused more of a stir than the infamous cleaning fee controversy. Throughout 2022, Airbnb guests began posting to social media in droves, complaining about the expensive and often hidden cleaning fees. The situation was only made worse when reports revealed that the cleaning fees had risen by 28% following the 2019 pandemic, and these fees often resulted in an 11% increase in the total price. And if that wasn't enough to ruin your day, around this time, Airbnb also spent a large amount of resources developing an algorithm to try and prevent partygoers from booking. The algorithm would assess a person's age, how close the reservation was to their birthday, the length of their stay, and whether the location was near a party-centric area. All in all, the algorithm resulted in 320,000 bookings from being accepted. These problems, along with many others, bring attention to a narrative that has been going on for quite some time now. that Airbnb has lost its human touch. In the past, it felt like you were staying in someone's home. Nowadays, it feels like it's a business running the home to make money, almost as though you were in an IKEA showroom rather than a cozy living space. All in all, the vision of their founders in San Francisco has been replaced with a corporate agenda to make as much money as possible, often at the expense of its customers. In response to the backlash, founder and now CEO Brian Chesky began living in Airbnbs to try and dig deep and find out what is causing this narrative. Over the course of 6 months, he lived in multiple Airbnbs, documenting the highs and lows, not only of the premises, but also of the people running them. In his own words, he went from being the president to a resident. In response to the controversies, Airbnb also rolled out what they called a total price display on the eve of 2023. The idea was to convey the message that Airbnb listened to its customers and wanted to improve their experience when using the platform. The announcement also came with the promise it is one of many updates to come, including new pricing tools for hosts to help set competitive prices and provide even greater value for guests. But unbeknownst to Airbnb, their entire business model was about to receive a 1-2 punch from the government. It goes without saying that the rise of short-term rental platforms like Airbnb and its competitors has revolutionized the way people travel and find accommodation. However, the rapid growth of short-term rentals has also raised concerns in many areas, most notably New York City. That's why on September the 5th, 2023, New York City began enforcing a 2022 short-term rental law which is predicted to eliminate half of its entire Airbnb market. The 2022 short-term rental law, also known as Local Law 18, introduced several new provisions for Airbnb hosts, including 1. Hosts are now required to register their home, apartment, or room with the city before advertising, to ensure it adheres to a new set of rules and standards. 2. Hosts who pass the standards can no longer advertise their listing for more than 2 weeks at a time. 3. Hosts are no longer allowed to list entire units or homes for short-term stays. The host must occupy the same residence as their guest. And finally, rentals are limited to a maximum of 2 people per reservation, making the platform less accessible for families seeking a cheaper alternative. And what happens if hosts don't comply with this new law? Nothing short of a $5,000 fine slapped onto their wrists. This isn't just a sucker punch to the customers, but also Airbnb itself. Because if a property is found in violation of the law, Airbnb will also be fined $1,500. And it doesn't stop there for little old Airbnb. You see, before the announcement of the new law, there were a total of 41,931 Airbnb listings in New York. 24,279 of these listings, however, are entire houses. That means by simply passing this law, they have wiped out over 56.6% of Airbnb's New York listings. And when you realize that the average price of a house is much higher than a room, it makes you wonder how much revenue they are losing in total. But why is New York City doing this? Well, for a few reasons. First, over the years there have been a large number of illegal Airbnbs being run without the consent of the landlord. During a podcast called The Best One Yet, one of the hosts even told a story about how he was evicted from an Airbnb in the middle of the night because of this problem. It's also worth mentioning that most of the rules laid out in the above law were already in place. The difference now is that they will be enforced. Another reason for the law is that New York City is trying to offset the rising cost of living in New York City. The problem up until now is that property owners are more inclined to rent their room out on Airbnb than to rent it out to residents of the city, causing a surplus of residents to properties. The biggest reason of all has to do with the good old American lifeblood we know as lobbying. Yes, it will come as no surprise to many that New York City is regarded as the country's hotel capital, with 130,000 hotel rooms as of 2023. And so, it was only a matter of time for lobbying groups to start pushing this law to be enforced, the most notable being the Hotel Trades Council. However, while Airbnb will take a massive hit to their revenue from this change, the real victims in this situation are the hosts. Many will now face uncertainty about their ability to continue offering their properties to guests. Hosts in New York City have responded to the new law with mixed emotions. On the one hand, some rely on short-term rentals to make ends meet. For them, the law's confusing and restrictive nature jeopardizes their entire livelihood. While many understand the city's aim to target problematic hosts, it seems that small-scale hosts are caught in the crossfire. On the other hand, companies like AKA see the new law as an opportunity. AKA specializes in luxury short-term rentals and operates entire buildings of such properties. Under the city's new rules, AKA will be allowed to continue its operations. They anticipate that the decrease in Airbnb housing stock will create a level playing field for their business, as younger users who initially sought stays on Airbnb will now seek higher-end accommodations with them. As for Airbnb itself, the road ahead is unclear. The once disruptive platform that changed the way people travel and find accommodations is now facing a series of challenges. Controversies, from rising cleaning fees to accusations of losing its human touch, have tarnished its image, and the new law poses a significant threat to its revenue. Sure, the company might be too big to fail at this point, but that doesn't mean the new laws aren't a huge threat to the foundation of its business model. And speaking of foundations, in a 2023 interview with Bloomberg, founder Brian Chesky said, "To use a precise metaphor, it's kind of like we never fully built the foundation. Like we had a house and it had 4 pillars when we needed to have 10. We need to get our house in order. We need to make sure the listings are great. We're providing great customer service and we're affordable. And I've told our team that we can get back to creating new and exciting things once we fix that foundation." The company's future now hinges on its capacity to weather the storms of regulation, criticism, and competition while staying true to its founding principles of connecting people and places in meaningful ways. Only time will tell whether Airbnb will rise to the challenge or lose its standing. So the question is, should cities regulate Airbnb for the benefit of the community, or should they leave it up to the market? Let me know in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to Rise. Thanks for watching.